Exclamation and welcome to Starway Fleet. So this is my revisit of the game. I was honestly expecting that I wouldn't have to revisit this for several months because I already did it while it was in early access, and I thought it was going to be in early access for quite some time because it still needed a lot of work to it. Unfortunately, it came out about a month after I found it in early access. It's not a complete experience, and I'll just say that right out the bat. As someone who enjoys this genre, as someone whose favorite game of all time is Wing Commander 3 and 4, it's kind of a tie there. I have certain expectations when I come into a game like this. There's certain quality of life things that I expect, and after having played the early access version of this, I I was on hanging around the Space Game Junkie Discord channel, and I think they were talking about the game, and I sort of jokingly said it felt like a game that was it felt like a space game designed by someone who loves first-person shooter games, right? Or someone who really meant to make a first-person shooter game, because honestly, it feels more like a first-person shooter. It really doesn't have the creature comforts or the things that you would expect out of a space sim game. And it's kind of painfully obvious, some of the things, and I'm going to have to point them all out. I was being very kind to the game when it was in early access because I figured it was going to stay in early access for a while, and some of that feedback would go into the main game. I was wrong. And unfortunately, this company that has designed this is by Stormcube Games. If you go look them up on Steam, they've had quite a few games now. This is, I think, their third game, where a lot of the reviews talk about how they released it out of early access really in an unfinished state. Several of their other games have had this problem. This game has this problem. It also looks like them as a company, they seem to be targeting very popular, what would I call it, franchises? Not really franchises, but popular topics, popular genres of the time. And right now, we're still in a wave of popularity of the space sim games, and so they seem to have gotten into space sim games. Earlier on, they were in sort of the real-time strategy games. They're kind of riding the coattails, but the problem is they don't seem to be, at least from what I've seen, subject matter experts on the genre that they're trying to build in. It seems to me like, and I'll pick on Starway Fleet in general here. Like I said, it feels like someone who really enjoys first-person shooters said, I'm going to make a space fighter game. Because it feels like a first-person shooter. It kind of behaves a little bit like a first-person shooter. And it's kind of weird in that respect. I want to point out something on this options menu before we go into the single player here. Brian Rubin, who runs the Space Game Junkie channel and podcasts and other things, you should really go over and take a look at him. He, in his review of this game, was very adamant about being able to lock on to targets and lock on and do what at least having some of those creature comforts. And I also, in my first look at it, I was like, it would really be great to have a targeting system of some kind that was actually, where I could follow individual ships as they go off your view, because they do throw a lot of ships at you, a lot of fighters at you. And what happens is with the auto targeting, as they have in the game, is it'll just float. It's just a floating target. It'll just keep targeting the very first thing that's in your viewpoint. And so you end up jumping between all these different fighters, and the one that you were chasing down is gone, and you can't find him again, and all that stuff. So they've kind of made it an option now where you can turn the auto targeting off, and you can go under the controls, and you can set to your keyboard command for select target ahead, and you can set that to whatever you want in order to be able to select targets. Here's the thing though. There's also a lock aiming. And I thought to myself, oh, maybe they put lock targeting on. Not really. This actually locks the aiming to the center of your screen, which is a little bit weird because then you can't, there's no indicator of where you're actually flying. And I'll show you this in flight and you'll see how weird this is. It's very strange. I don't even know why this is here. I don't know of anybody who would actually do this, unless maybe this is something that's more for controllers, I guess, possibly. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe it's for the VR mode. This game apparently has a VR mode. I'm not going to chance it because I have a feeling that as soon as I put a VR headset on, it's going to blast my eyes out based on just the bloom and everything else in the game. So I'm just not even going to try that. I'm going to stick with just a regular mode here. So we'll jump into this menu again when I come back, but let's get into the single player. So tutorial we don't need to do. I've kind of figured it out. There's a survival mode, which is basically survive as many waves as you can. We'll do that in a little bit. I'm going to do at least one mission here. Now the thing with the missions are, there's a little bit of story and a little bit of background. This is all you get. Each mission is completely detached from the mission before. There's like no real there's no overarching narrative that ties all this together. It looks like really what they were going for is having a multiplayer set of multiplayer maps, and the single player has just been bolted on top of that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that a lot of people, when you see a single player experience, you kind of want something that is you can follow, that's got a narrative that can really tie everything together, even if it's just a thin narrative, even if it's just something really, really razor thin. At least it's something that carries you along. If I think of a razor thin narrative, like say the original Mirror's Edge game, there was a razor thin narrative in there. Most people don't play that game for the story, but there's enough story there that it kind of ties the whole thing together. You know, it's not the greatest story ever told. It's not really even that very, very good, but it's enough to all these different maps that you're running it through and parkouring through. It's enough to tie them together to just give you an experience, right? The really experience of that game is the gameplay. This doesn't manage to do that. So it's a lot of disconnected missions here. You can see there's 10 missions, and that's about it. I am going to just do, I think I did mission 1 on the original time. Let's just do, I don't know, a lot of these are literally just protection missions, like escort missions, which is really bothers me too. Of all the mission types, everybody who plays space games knows that the escort missions suck. They've always and forever sucked in every single game. They're the one mission that you're like, I wish I wasn't playing this mission right now. And it's like they took every one of those escort missions that you absolutely hate and they just plopped them right into this game. So let's just do mission 4. Why not? And I'm going to do just rookie just so that I don't die 29 times. And you can see what's going on. Plus, I'm going to switch up in the options menu as we go. So I want to make sure that you see some of the weirdness here with the game. Plus, also, my hope is that by playing this mission, I won't hear the frigates. Ah, someone said frigate correctly. This sounds crazy because this is crazy. I love that dialogue. I have no idea what that guy said. It's good I turned the subtitles on for you guys because I can't even understand what they're saying, and I've got the sound all the way up. Okay. These guys. So this is just the normal, you know, floating cursor here with the mouse and keyboard. This might be a good time to do it. Let's go into the options menu. All right, I'm gonna turn on the lock aiming, and you'll get to see what this is. So now my cursor stays right in the middle of the screen, but as I move the mouse around, the ship moves. Now, unfortunately, I have no idea where the cursor is, so I don't know how far or fast I'm moving. I don't know. It's hard to just kind of make small movements because you can't tell where you're at as far as the cursor is concerned. Like, you have to hold the mouse like really tight and just make very, very fine movements to do this. Now, I imagine if I turned the maybe the sensitivity down a little bit, maybe it would be better. I don't know if this is just for like a controller-based game. Maybe this makes the controller, if you're using a controller for this, a little bit easier. That's all I could think that it does. Oh, my shield is down. How about that? That's all I could think that does, but it's, yeah. Let's get out of that, because that's driving me nuts. So take this out. And we'll go back in here, and now we're back to the guns follow the cursor, and based on the distance of the cursor is where you're actually going to fly. Yeah, let's get a full speed ahead here. And let's see if we can catch up with some of these guys. So I got torpedoes. Let's get our missiles out. You know, I don't really need them. I switched over to the quad guns on the right-hand side there. So, one of the problems, so I'm targeting with the mouse, the middle mouse button, which is fine, that's comfortable. But if I let this guy go off the screen here, right, there's no indication that I've locked onto that guy, right? It's like, normally in a normal game when you lock onto somebody, their icon in the little, you know, all the pips that are on the screen there would be bigger and or a different color or something to make it prominent so that as they go off your screen, you can actually follow them. You know, especially if you're trying to dodge incoming stuff and and other things. This game doesn't do that. So that's one major quality of life thing that the game doesn't do. The other thing is, with the auto targeting turned off, it is very difficult to actually target subsystems here. Like, I'm trying to target their shield generators, and I'm not having very much luck. Like, there's a turret right there, right? Let's see if I can target this one. There, I can target that turret, right? That's good. But then, how do I need to target their shield generators. So this comes down to another problem with the game, which is they have you do a lot of these strafing runs. They don't give you a means upon which to do a good strafing run. Like normally a game like this, if I pick on Wing Commander for a second, Wing Commander had the concept of an auto slide, right? You would hold down, oh, there's their shield generators, right? Yep. So Wing Commander had the concept of a auto slide, right? You would hold down the caps lock key and your ship would maintain whatever forward velocity, whatever vector, forward vector I should say, vector and velocity, it was having when you held down the key. Also, Tachyon the Fringe had something similar. In fact, in Tachyon the Fringe, it was a little bit broken. You could hold down the slide key, and if you had hit your afterburners, you would continue forward and not have to not expend any gas. So I used to use that to You'll see in my playthrough of that game that I actually did that quite a lot to get out of tight situations without actually expending any afterburner fuel and stuff like that. A little bit of a bug in the game that they never patched. But in Wing Commander, it was similar, where you would set whatever course you wanted to go on and whatever speed you were going, and then you would hit the auto slide button, and then you could maneuver in any direction you wanted to, but your ship would continue on in whatever vector it was going on in the first place. So that allowed you to do strafing runs, like literal strafing runs. Oh, okay. I lost Cruiser Scorpius. All right, fine. So it would let you do these literal strafing runs where you could just go through and fly right alongside a ship and take out the turrets and other things. So that made for a very good quality of life thing that also allowed them to basically make these make missions where you could actually go and take down big capital ships and have a hope of not, taking out their turrets and all that stuff and not have to go through some weird maneuvering. Unfortunately, this game doesn't have that, so you end up trying to maneuver around in such a way to hit their shield generators and stuff, and then they go and hide the shield generators behind little blades of armor. So you end up in a situation where it's really not... It's very painful. We'll use that word. It's very painful to do these strafing runs where you need to actually kill shield generators and stuff. It makes them a little bit harder. It basically makes it where instead of fighting the difficulty of the game, you're fighting the controls of the game. You're fighting the way that the game was set up, not the actual difficulty of the mission, right? It's just it was not, the controls were not properly set up to allow you to do these things really with any kind of measure of success. So what are we... See, the other problem is you got all these pips here. There's Cruiser Scorpius. Right. So my problem right now is there's capital ships here, and I see the big circles here, but I don't see... Oh, there's one. Okay. I'm like, I see these big circles, but I can't actually track down where the enemy ships are. Let's put some more power to the shield here. So we're gonna do a little bit of a run by here.
Detecting new contact. Enemy light fighters ahead.
Alright, let's get away from there a little bit. Then we'll spin around. Take out their shield generators, or at least try to. It's that side, and then I think they had some on the other side here, I believe. Yeah, they have some over there. Let's take out that turret. Like I said, it becomes a lot... It's much harder to get this to kind of work for you.
Understood. You heard it, birdies. Concentrate fire on the destroyer's shield generators.
There we go. Alright. And I guess there's probably 3 more on this other side, I would imagine. So, the big thing here, as anybody who plays space games would, I think, agree, is it's very important to have a robust targeting system. And I talked about this a little bit when I first looked at the game and said that, yeah, is this guy actually blowing up, or what is going on here? Oh, well, I'm blowing up, that's for sure. I mean, he looks like he's blowing up. Oh yeah, he did blow up. Okay, well, that was a thing. Let's do survival, because I've had enough of that. So 10 waves of Torgarian fighters. Let's go with that. Let's roll with that one. So yeah, there's a lot of just quality of life things. Not having a radar is,
Panther's Claw are the best.
it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it's,
Enemy light fighters ahead.
I don't know, it feels like it would be, you know, having these pips on the side are okay. I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. I think they work for the most part, but it's still very hard to track your targets. It's very hard to see where the targets are in relation to you. You end up with very little,
Detecting new contacts.
very little sense about where you are. Like, you know, how you see me sort of bump into a lot of things here, and it's because you really do lose a sense of your bearings. It's very easy to lose your bearings in this game because it's very hard to see what's going on. I think the cockpit takes up a little too much of the screen, and in addition to that, I feel like the field of view is a little bit lower. This kind of, I don't know if it's true or not. I've never been able to really determine what the field of view of a game is, but I get the feeling like this is not 90 degrees. This feels more like it's maybe a 60-degree field of view, because everything feels very claustrophobic, and not in a good way. Like, it feels like
Detecting new contacts.
see, here we go. Where I can't see what's going on. It just feels like you can't see what's happening. There's no real sense of what is around you. I mean, there's obviously, you get collision alerts, which are, you know, fine and dandy, but they don't tell you where their collision alert is coming from. They have done some changes to the artwork in here. I believe this cockpit is just a Unity Store asset, but I think they have recolored it and things from the defaults, which is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. You know, it's not a flip if they've added, you know, gameplay. If they've actually written code for the game, then it's not, you know, it's not an asset flip or anything like that. If they haven't written any code, that might be a problem. But I'm going to venture a guess and say that they've written actual code here. Some actual coding has happened, and again, this is like it's almost like if you were to take Doom, right, and make Doom Guy auto walk. Like, just give Doom Guy a jetpack and have him constantly just walking forward, and you just use WASD to control which way he goes. That's what this game feels like, because it doesn't feel like it has the markings of being an actual space fighter game. It's a little bit better than the other, I think it's, what is it, Disputed Space or something like that. Some other game that I played where you were literally just walking around in space. This feels better than that. It feels like you have thrust and all that stuff. It just, the aiming and stuff feels more like a gallery, like a shooting gallery simulator more than anything else. You know, like you could replace these guys easily with, say, cacodemons from Doom, and it would feel probably about the same, assuming, of course, Doom Guy was just in a jetpack, right? I mean, it's smooth. The controls are definitely smooth. They definitely feel okay. They feel good. Like the mouse and keyboard, usually in a game like this, the mouse and keyboard would not feel very good. In this game, it actually feels really good. So props on that. I do, you know, I do like that it's very responsive. But again, situational awareness, that's what the word I was trying to look for, is very low as far as the game is concerned. And the game really doesn't have much going for it, right? It's like, it's a gallery shooter, right? It's like, if they aligned them up, you know, ducks in a row and just said, "Here, shoot all the ducks." Like, you know, one of those like ads that you see on on websites where it's like, "Shoot all the ducks for more information on our product." That kind of thing. This is what this feels like. It does. It feels like that. It doesn't really have any meat on the bone yet, which is sad because, you know, this is a genre that I really like and I really enjoy, and we need good games in this genre. We don't need Me Too's. This is coming from a guy who is still actually optimistic about Star Citizen. I know, even though I backed Star Citizen for Squadron 41, and Squadron 41 is barely a footnote anymore as far as news and everything else goes, I'm still optimistic for it. You know, I've played a little bit of Star Citizen a few months ago, did a video on it. It was, you know, it was janky, it was early, but it was coming along. I mean, it wasn't much else I could say about it. And you know, we need good entries in the genre. You know, this is a genre where you're constantly looking back at things like Tachyon, which was done in the 90s, I believe. You've got, you know, your Wing Commanders, which again were done in the 90s. You've got TIE Fighter, which was early 90s. You've got Free Space, although Free Space, Free Space is good. I never actually fully played Free Space. I've played the Free Space 2 Open, the open source version of it. I've played a lot because there's a lot of mods out there, and very good mods at that. You know, Wing Commander mods and other things. There was like a Babylon 5 mod at one point in time. I think there's still a Battlestar Galactica mod. Diaspora, I believe, is still a thing. Although, with fan-made mods, you're probably going to wait about a decade or so before they are ready for release. But it's still, it's good to see that engine, you know, has been updated and is continuing on with the times and is really pretty darn robust. They're making that engine do things that it was never intended to do, and they're doing it well, and you know, my hat is off to them. But we do need a new contender. We need a new franchise. Honestly, I think is what we really need. And as much as Star Citizen might introduce that, it's, I mean, what's the most recent thing we got? We got Starlancer, Freelancer. Freelancer still has life in it in the mod community. And Freelancer actually probably the best third-person space fighter game as far as mouse control goes. Like, you can do pretty much everything with the mouse, and it's very comfortable. Probably, I'd say, most likely the gold standard as far as mouse and keyboard-driven games are. So, you know, if anybody wants to do a mouse and keyboard-driven space game, you definitely want to look at that. You definitely want to emulate that. And then we suddenly died. Okay. So, this is mostly, what is this? Mostly an endless mode, I guess. There's waves to take out, but basically it's just very cut and dry and plain and basic. Yeah, there's not much else I can really say about it. It's I wish that there was more here to really take in. You know, it feels like if this had spent more time in the oven and was, you know, had an actual narrative and was fleshed out and had all the soup to nuts things that a space sim guy would love, this would be a very respectable title. It doesn't have any of that, unfortunately. And that's really it's a real shame because, you know, it could have been a contender. It could have been a contender, and it really isn't, unfortunately. And yeah, it's a lot of mindless shooty. Again, it feels like it was designed by someone who was just riding the coattails of the genre, not someone that actually appreciates the genre and what it has to offer beyond you know, monetary gains, I guess. Yeah, it could have been a love letter. Instead, it's more of a Me Too. It's more of a, hey, give me some of that money. Give me some of that genre money, more than anything else. And that's a shame because, yeah, I'm starting to really repeat myself here because honestly, I am trying to give some good feedback and good gameplay here, but there's not much to work on. I'm finding myself struggling for the appropriate words here.
These are fighter bombers. Destroy your shields first.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But my friends, this has been Starway Fleet. It is by Stormcube Games. It's unfortunately fully released out on Steam. It's currently $9.99. It's by Stormcube Games. I hate to say this, but I would recommend in the future, if you see anything by Stormcube Games, I would probably steer clear of them, and instead, you know, wait, if you see one of their things in early access, I would wait until it comes fully out. Wait for a sucker like me to come along and try it out, and then look at it for yourself. I would not be the guinea pig for any more of their games if I was a discerning consumer. As it is, I am a hobbyist YouTuber, so it's kind of my job, kind of my calling, to look at these things because Steam is so woefully inadequate as far as giving you actual gameplay footage and an accurate representation of the product that you're paying for, you know. I kind of wish, if there's one thing I'd wish that Steam would do, like they've got this curator thing and everything else, and they say they want to improve it, but I kind of wish that they would just let certain people who have some kind of, I don't know, certain number of thumbs up or curators or something, to be able to upload videos that would actually show up on the store page of the product, you know, in its own section, so that people could look right there. I mean, as it is, they're kind of buried under the community tab. You can do it. They're kind of buried under the community tab. I wish they were front and center so that people could see what they're actually getting without it being sort of cut and pieced together by devs and kind of have things glossed over, like how this feels to someone. You know, it's easy to look at gameplay footage of this and go, oh, that looks a lot of fun, that has no commentary, and then listen to someone like me who has played a lot of these games and then find out that, oh yeah, actually it doesn't really feel that great. It doesn't really break any ground. It really doesn't do anything different. It feels like it almost feels like asteroids in like a three-dimensional asteroids kind of clone than it does a space sim game. So that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. But anyway, I've given you all the details as always. I will leave links down in the description so you can do your own due diligence. And thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.